All right.
Hey everyone that's joining. I'm just going to give it another minute or so to see if anyone else hops on, and then we'll get started here pretty quickly. And as you join, if you would like to, please feel free to put, just introduce yourself in the chat, maybe say where you're from so we can get a sense of who's all here. All right, well, I think I'm going to just jump right in with some introductions while people join and get settled in. Thank you all for being here. This is super exciting for us to be able to share a tool we've been working on for a while at Library Research Service with you all. And I'm Sarah Weissen. I'm the research assistant for the Library Research Service of the Colorado State Library. And I'm here with my colleagues Dana and Polly, and I will let them introduce themselves each quick here. So if you, Dana or Polly, you want to jump in?
I'll go. I'm Dana Peterson. I'm the data coordinator and web developer for the Library Research Service. And I'll popcorn over to Polly.
Thanks, Dana. Hi, everyone. Polly Gallagher. I work with the Public Library Leadership Development, and I'm so excited that you are all here to join us on this tool. It's a great way to highlight strengths and opportunities that exist with the library and to find other libraries that perhaps could support in doing that. So,
Thank you. And I see a few people keep joining us, which is awesome. So for anyone that didn't hear before, please feel free to be you're welcome to introduce yourself in the chat, put your name and where you're from so we can see who's all here. The plan for today is first, Polly's going to talk a little bit about kind of bigger picture, some of the why behind this tool and how we really think it can benefit you and how to use it to get the most out of this tool we've created. And then I am going to show an example, a slide deck that was created using this tool that I just made. And so you can learn what all is included, what a final product might look like if you'd like to use this annual board report template, and get a sense. It might give you some ideas on how best to use it yourself as well. And then we're going to walk through the instructions for setting it up step by step. So these are one-time instructions, and we're going to just go through them slowly. If you haven't already set it up yourself, this would be a great time for you to follow along on your own computer and go through it with us. I am not amazing at reading the chat while I'm talking, but I've got Dana here. She's going to help monitor, and really just feel free to interrupt me at any time while I'm showing the example or going through the instructions, because we really want to make sure everyone's able to follow along and we don't lose people along the way. So yeah, at that point, I think I'm going to hand it over to Polly for a little bit of an intro here.
thanks, Sarah. And I apologize. I'm at the Special District Association conference, which just wrapped up, and I thought I had found a nice quiet corner, but they're just clearing this area. So if there's any background noise, I'm so sorry. But in taking a look at this data tool, one of the things when Kieran and I are going around to different libraries and talking about using data for decision making, for identifying priorities to work on, we found that this is a great, easy tool to pull in your comparative libraries. And when looking at comparative libraries, we don't do it as far as to be like, nah, look at us, we're so much better than you. Though I will say sometimes that does work if you have a football team, right, who is your arch rival, and you can go ahead and do a little comparison there. But it's really that opportunity to focus on your strengths, what opportunities you have for growth, And then what are some aspirations that you have in looking at where you want your library to be? So just kind of think about that as you're putting together your comparisons and your like libraries and using this data. So thanks so much, Sarah. And I was going to say at the end, will you highlight the possibility of how you can do this more localized if they reach out to you, or do you want me to touch on that here?
Yeah, if you want to speak to it a little bit, and then I can kind of bring it back to that at the end too. But feel free to go for it right now as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I so appreciate about this is all the data that you've collected, you've passed on to the state library through the public library annual report. And one of the pieces is how do you what can you do with that data? You know, it's great to show to your board. It's a great tool with visuals to be able to share with the public. And if it's something that you like, something that you think you can use, if you talk to the library development team, either Sarah or Dana, there's the potential of being able to do this on a more monthly basis in which you add the data, you put in, select what you want to include, and then you have that for each of your board meetings. And I think as you go through this tool, you'll see what we're talking about. The one you're looking at today takes that PLAR data that already exists and populates it. So it's nice because then you don't have to do that. Thanks.
Definitely. Yep. Yeah, we want to emphasize that this is looking at annual data, so it's not a monthly board report per se. We're really trying to stress the like annual board report template. But we are talking about and in design of doing something monthly in the future. We just don't have that data to provide to you right now. So that would involve a little bit more work on the user's end to fill in monthly data, but we really want to get that going because we think that would be really exciting. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out to us. And with that, I am going to share my screen and show you what we've put together here. So let's see, is everyone seeing the slides?
Yep, and put yourself in presenter mode and we'll be good to go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the first slide deck, and this is not what it's going to necessarily look like when you first open up the tool, because obviously I filled it in with a library's logo here. I've changed the title, put in date, all of that. So things that you can do to make it your own. I am using Lyons Regional Library District as an example for this here today, and this is a slide deck that will be available to you to look at afterwards as well. So if I go through some of the slides a little quickly today and you're not able to read it all, or you want to go back and check out what I included in it, that will be available to you. So we've got the title slide here. Going forward, we have got the peers that I selected. So we decided that we are going to compare, just for an example here today, Lyons Regional Library District with Nederland Community Library District, Clear Creek County Library District, and Gilpin County Library District. So this is a table that you select in the Sheets document. You select these libraries. It looks just like this. And the LSA populations, legal service area populations, operating expenditures, and total employees in FTEs, that is, auto-populates. And I've included another slide here where you can kind of explain why you decided to compare to the peers that you're comparing to. Here I just wrote a little bit explaining there's similarities in the legal service area population, operating expenditures, staff. I also took the general geographical area and proximity to each other into consideration when choosing peers as well. And we have been considering like helping create a tool to guide libraries to their peers, but we also know that as library staff, you all have a good understanding of like what your goals are for your library and your more in-depth understanding than we might have from just looking at the PLAR data. So we encourage you to choose your peers, but we're also here to help. If you need help choosing peers, if you don't really know where to start, I'm not going to get into that today. We could talk about it for a long time, but I'm not going to get into it today. Just know that if you have questions about peers as you start using this tool, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help identify some peer libraries for you to compare to. I also put a note here that says that, like Polly said, this is a great way to identify library strengths and maybe opportunities for improvement, though it can also be noted that each library's community is different and has unique needs, and just things to keep into consideration while we're presenting this peer data and making these peer comparisons. This is the first chart that's included, local revenue per capita. And on the left side here, I've included text. When you first open up the tool, this is going to be placeholder text. So it is up to you after you've populated the charts and set up the tool to delete that text and then write in whatever observations you would like here. You can tell your library's story here. I've just added 2 bullet points about observations from the chart that Lyons Regional Library District has been higher than its peers. The local revenue per capita has been higher than its peers since 2022. And it saw the sharpest increase from 2023 to 2024. This line chart showing years from 2017 to 2024. So everyone's got different styles for slides. And so I've tried to do different things on some of these slides to kind of show examples of how you could add more text or less text. So we'll just keep going here and look at some more. This chart shows allocation of expenditures. So the proportion of total expenditures that were spent on collection, staffing, or other expenditures. And similar to the slide before, I've written in an observation here that I made from the chart. Including this text is also important for accessibility. I've worked to make these charts have accessible color combos and be as accessible as possible, but including text next to charts is also important for people with visual impairments that may not be able to read the charts. So it's really important to use that space to tell your library story, and I'll put in the work to add that text and not rely solely on the charts. Another note on accessibility is that these charts do include alternative text, alt text, when they are inserted into the slides. It's pretty generic, however. Obviously, I can't write alt text for the library comparisons specifically that you might be doing. So you're also welcome to go in and edit that alt text if you would like to make it more detailed. Between the sections in the slide deck, I have included kind of more blank slides that are open for you to just put any text, images that really introduce the topic and talk about maybe the goals of your library in relation to this topic. Obviously, if you're library staff, you probably have more insights than I do into Lyons Regional Library District, but I did take a quick look at their 2023 to 2025 strategic plan to kind of give an example of how you might want to connect the data in this chart and give context to the strategic plan when presenting to the board.
And Sarah, if I may, this is another place that's great to put your library story in. So the individual patron story or event story that you can then highlight through the data use.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point. We can provide the numbers for you here, but it's really important to provide the stories as well. They can really be what brings it all home. This slide contains 2 charts, total collection expenditures and collection expenditures per capita. These are bar charts. I spent a little bit of room here just putting bullets with the specific numbers, which is just another example of a way that you could fill in text if you feel like you really need to call out certain data points. I also want to bring your attention to this bottom total collection expenditures chart. So you can see that it looks like each of the peer libraries and the peer average category, which is included in each of the charts, is pretty similar. And the Colorado average is way out there because this is not a per capita calculation. It's just total collection expenditures, and it's averaging all Colorado library systems. And the large libraries with large budgets are pulling that average way up. And we're looking at smaller libraries right now. So this might not be relevant for you to include in your chart, this Colorado average, and you do have control over that. So I wanted to show you quickly that I think I'm still sharing the screen here, but if I exit presenter mode, you also make a copy of this sheet. And this sheet is where you really have control over the individual aspects of the chart. In the slides, you can customize, you can add, delete slides, you can insert pictures, you can change the text. If you want to customize charts, you go to this sheet, and each of these tabs correlates with a chart in the slide deck. So if you are like, oh, that Colorado average just isn't relevant to what I'm trying to show, which is the difference between the peer libraries, it's making the difference look really small, and it's throwing the scale off, you can go to the tab collection expenditures, and there's a column here that says display in chart. You can click the drop down, and you can say, no, I do not want to display the Colorado average in the chart. You can see that in this chart, it updates immediately. And so you're like, oh, now I have a much better understanding of the peers. If you go back to the slide, it did not update immediately, but you can update it individually by clicking this little arrow circle and then saying update. And now it's updated for the chart to not include the Colorado average. All right, I'm going to get back in this slideshow mode. All right, so this chart is another one of those stacked bar charts showing the proportion of library's total collection broken down by physical and digital items. I've explained here how the number of digital items was calculated and written in an observation from the chart about Lions. This is another bar chart. This shows material types, print volumes, ebooks, and e-audio, and the number of total items broken down by material type. And this is another one of those examples where the Colorado average just shoots way up there, and you might want to look at this chart without the Colorado average. So you can do the exact same thing I just showed you, go into the sheet and select no in this charts sheet under the display in chart tab. If we want to look at that again later, I'm happy to show if people have questions. Here's a bar chart showing print volumes per capita. And again, I've just written in a description here of Lyons Regional Library District that has between 3 and 4 physical books for every one person in their library's legal service area. This is a slide about technology and specifically the number of public library access computers per 1,000 served. This per 1,000 served calculation is a calculation similar to per capita, but we use it when we're looking at items like computers, that if you divided the number of computers the library has by every person in their legal service area, you would get a teeny tiny decimal, and it's pretty hard to kind of conceptualize, like, oh, they have 0.034 computers per one person, like what does that mean? So if you multiply it and scale it up for every 1,000 people, it's easier to kind of conceptualize that Lyons has close to 2 computers per 1,000 people that they serve. So that was the end of the collection section. There's also a section on staffing. And again, this is one of those slides that originally comes in pretty blank. I've included an image and I have written some bullet points that I feel tell the story that I saw based on the data in the following slides to try to summarize what I saw about staffing. Oh, another note on accessibility is that I inserted these pictures just to kind of add to the design, and I did have to go in and add alt text to those pictures to make sure that they met accessibility standards. Here's another bar chart showing staff per 1,000 served. Got another bar chart showing the average hours per week per location. We got 3 slides on salaries. So we look at director salaries, non-supervising librarian salaries, and library assistant salaries. In the public library annual report, we collect salary data on other job categories, branch manager, library clerk, but not every library submits data for every type of position. So I picked these 3: director salaries, non-supervising librarian salaries, and library assistant salaries because they were the ones that the most libraries responded to. So including these charts would be helpful to the most number of libraries. But again, you can see that not everybody included director salary. So Nederland did not have data for the director salary. And this happens sometimes in other charts too, if you select a peer that didn't report on that specific piece of data. So again, just similar to if you didn't want to include the Colorado average, if you don't like this gap here and think, oh, like people just, it might raise questions and it doesn't help with the comparison to have a column for Ned that's empty because they didn't have data for this section. You can do what I did before, go back into the sheet, find the tab that is connected to the director salary chart, which would be right here. Go in and select no for the display in chart column in column A here. You can see again, this chart updates immediately. You do have to go back in, click that little circle arrow and update this chart. And now you don't have that gap for Nederland where there wasn't any data entered. Another salary chart here. This was the non-supervising librarian one I was talking about. Again, you can see here Clear Creek didn't enter data for this position. So you can do the same thing if you didn't want to show the blank area here. I've also included the Colorado living wage as calculated by the Living Wage Institute in each of these charts. And then this is the library assistant bar chart salary. And again, it's also important to note it's in the title here, but this is the low end that was reported. And for some of these positions, libraries report a low end and a high end. That was the end of the staffing section. So this section is on outputs. And again, this blank slide, a great place to really make it your own, tell your library story, tell individual stories of patrons that were assisted in certain ways or what they got from certain things, talk about the highlight a specific program maybe. Yeah, lots of space for you to tell your own story. Here is a line chart showing circulation from 2020 to 2024. Circulation per capita specifically. A line chart showing visits per capita, again from 2020 to 2024. I went in and did a little extra investigation because I was curious. So I was able to say, based on the PLAR data we provide, that Lyons Regional Library District has the 7th highest visits per capita out of all 112, which isn't something that you could take away from this chart immediately, but seeing how high it was in this chart made me curious to then go on our site and use one of the dashboards that Dana made to find that information. This bar chart shows total programs offered from 2023 to 2024, or not to, from 2023 to 2024, but it's a comparison of the 2 years, 2023 and 2024. And the last slide is program attendance from, again, showing the years 2023 to 2024. So you can see whether you program attendance increased or decreased. And this one is a comparison of that per 1,000 served that we talked about. I also just want to mention that on some of these charts, depending on the libraries you select, some libraries have very long names. And so depending on how the length of the name, how many libraries you select, there can be slightly finicky things about the formatting of the chart. We worked really hard to make it as universally functional as possible. If one of the like labels looks a little funny, you don't have to just deal with it. Again, everything about this is customizable because you make your own copies. So you can go into the sheets and adjust the size of the charts there to help make the labels look exactly how you would like them to. I also wanted to speak a little bit to why we chose slides here. We originally did a report similar to this in Word, but we really were thinking about both presenting and also having handouts. And so we just wanted to remind people that slides can be printed, and this might be something people want to refer back to later. So we really saw that doing the connection in this way between a sheets and a slides document would be a way to keep it versatile and have it be something that people could print as well. And I think that's all for this example. Does anyone have any questions? If there aren't any questions and people are ready to jump in.
Well, we do have one, Sarah.
Oh, cool.
It's the big one. What is the best way to find the peer libraries?
Yes, we could probably do a much longer webinar about this, and it's also individual. You don't have to use specifically the legal service area population, operating expenditures, and staff FTEs. These are the things that we have over time identified as helpful in finding peer libraries. So that's why we included them in this table. And so that's kind of where I point people to start kind of sorting through library systems to see where your library falls in these 3 metrics and what libraries fall around them, both above and below. You might want some libraries that have higher operating expenditures to compare and slightly lower operating expenditures to see both sides of things. And that's one place to start, but there may definitely be more specific data points for individual libraries that they want to look at that are different than these, and that's fine too. Dana, do you have any?
Yeah, I just put a couple links in the chat to some of the dashboards that let you sort and filter, so you can start to look at who are the libraries that are below and above us in whatever category you're interested in. So that's a real rough place to start. And the discussion of peers is kind of, beyond the scope of what we wanted to talk about today. But Veronica, absolutely, we'd love to talk to you about, we can do some work. I've done some work with for Loveland, where we also brought in a bunch of demographic data of Loveland city and who are the people that make up that LSA. Veronica's asking, you've listed 4 libraries as comparisons. Is that typical or good to look for in doing the report? again, yeah, it kind of depends. Some libraries are rather singular, and so it's hard to find more than a couple of peers. Other libraries are have a bigger group of similar peers. So it's a great question, Veronica. We'd love to talk to you offline about that, so we can get everybody set up with the tool today.
Definitely. Yeah, and the tool allows you to, you can compare to just one peer, and then the peer average won't populate in those cases, obviously, because there's just the one peer data point. It would be the same as the one peer the whole time, or you can select up to 6. You'll see there's some blank rows in this table here. So we've made it a cap at 6 peers just because the charts start to get really busy after that. But I like 3. But it's going to differ for each library. All right, so jumping into the instructions, I wanted to start at the very beginning from the LRS homepage at lrs.org. And this is where, if you haven't set things up yet, you're welcome to follow along. And we will navigate to where this tool lives on LRS, which is hovering over the data and tools drop down, scrolling down to general, and then over to public library annual report template. Also, on this page, you'll find this is the link to the example slides that I just showed, in case there's anything you want to go back and look at. Dana has made an amazing tutorial video, so that basically does exactly what we're going to do right now. So if you need to come back to that, it is very helpful for setup. And this is a one-time setup, so it's going to take a little bit of time here, but after that, you'll have the copies to use yourself. You can click on this button, green button, Annual Board Report Template One-Time Setup Instructions, and get started. All right, so I see.
Encourage you, if you, especially if you have a 2-screen setup, do this along with us. And if you get stuck somewhere, go ahead and jump in, because if you get stuck somewhere, somebody else might as well. So feel free to jump in the chat or just unmute and let us know.
Yeah. I have heard some feedback that it's easy to jump in here, open up the documents, and want to just start messing around, but it is pretty important to follow the instructions to get it to a place where you can do that successfully. So we're just going to go through them step by step here. First, we want to click the links and make copies of the files. So this first one is the Sheets link for the data. And the second one is the slides link. So I just opened up the sheets and the slides. These are view only, which is why you have to make a copy of them. You can go to File, make a copy, and then name it whatever you would like. I'm going to name it Webinar. Make a copy. You do the same thing with the slides. File, make a copy. This one you choose entire presentation. And then you can name this whatever you would like. Make a copy. I personally like to just then, at that point, exit out of my parent document tabs. So I know what I'm looking at whenever I am opening it up. These are the copies I've made, and I don't accidentally click on the parent tabs anymore. The next step after that is to select your peers. So now that we've made a copy, you can edit this. And this is the first sheet here called Select Peers here. It should open up to that. You select your library. I'm just going to use the same example I just went with because that's been working well for me. And then you select peers. You choose however. This might take a little bit to think of which peers you want to use. But for the sake of time here, we're just going to say we've already got them all picked out.
And if you start with a handful of peers and then you see the charts and you think, ugh, that isn't really telling the story I want, you can come back and revise this list and it will update the charts with new libraries. So you can play around.
Definitely. Yep. This is, I've done that a lot as I've been working through it. It's been like, oh, but this library doesn't have data for this slide, and I really wanted to compare this, so I need to choose a different peer. It might take a minute, but these rows then do populate. The next thing for you to do is connect your sheets and your slides. So you're going to do that by grabbing the URL off of the Sheets document. So we're in the Sheets document right now. I click up here in this bar where the URL is to highlight it. And then I go Control C on my keyboard. And now I know it's copied. Now you click back into the Slides document and you find the Extensions tab up here in the toolbar. Just pausing a second to make sure if people are following along, they're able to get there.
Give us a thumbs up in the chat. Are we going too fast, too slow, doing okay?
Take a thumbs up as a good sign. Clicking on extensions, I select app script after that, and that's going to open a new tab. And this is where the instructions literally say, don't panic, because if I got here on my own, I would feel probably way over my head at this point, and I don't like the look of this screen. But this is where you don't have to be in here for long. You select the cursor where it's blinking right here is between the two single quotations in the second line of the script, and I select Control V on my keyboard to paste the URL that I just copied in here. All you have to do is click this little floppy disk symbol, save the project, and then I just exit right back out of that tab, so I don't have to look at it anymore. Once you've got that, you need to authorize the script to run. So to do that, there is an option up here that you'll see isn't in normal slide documents when you open it right back up. It's called Board Report Menu. We've added that in here. And if you're on a small screen, it might look like 3 dots. You click on the 3 dots, and then you should see this Board Report Menu. Clicking on that, you go to the bottom option, Authorize Script. It will say authorization required. You can click OK. Now it asks you to select a Google account. So I'll select my account.
It should be the same account that you downloaded the copies to. So it kind of needs to all live within a single Google account.
That's a good point. Thanks, Dana. Mm-hmm. You do need to select all of these options. What you're doing here is allowing it to make the connection between the sheets and the slides. You're not deleting or adding anything besides just the ability to have that connection. Continue. It says authorization complete. Now under the board report menu, click Add Charts. And we will do just that next. Board report menu, Add Charts. And it pops up saying that it's running the script. And this is another good place to pause if people have any questions, because this can take a minute or two to complete their 17 charts that it's connecting everything and doing all the work. So it might take a minute, but was everyone able to follow along with me?
Yes.
Yay. Perfect.
And keep in mind, these steps are really just the single time. So you don't have to do this every time you come in to edit the report, just the single time to bring in those initial charts. Great. We got another yep.
Perfect. All right. And the script finished running here in my copies. So we've got the table populated, the charts populated, and it is looking good to go. And you'll see this is where you can see the text looks different from the example where I put in the work to write up my observations. Yours will just have this placeholder text that you still need to customize and make it your own. That's really all that we have for you today. And this is where we just wanted to open it up to see if people had any questions.
Maybe you go over the update charts. Like, what if you've got in here and you say, no, I want to add or remove a peer? Why don't we just go through that real quick, update charts?
That's a great point. Yeah. Let's say you are like, oh, Clear Creek has more people, higher operating expenditures, and I want to look, I don't want to look at a peer that is different in that way. So you can go back to the sheets. You can select this drop down. You can just delete Clear Creek out of here. The numbers disappear, everything. It goes away here immediately. If you go back to the slides, you'll see it's still here. And when I was doing the example of the Lions report, I clicked on one chart and said update chart, and it updated that singular chart. We don't want to make you have to go through that for every single chart, and you also need to update the table. So we've made another selection. If you select the board report button again in the toolbar, you can update all charts, and then it will run that script again. This takes a minute again. I usually just walk away for a second and then come back to it, and it will remove Clear Creek County Library District from all of the charts and update them all at once. I did this just by taking it out in that one row, in the first row of peers. There's nothing wrong with that. You can select your peers in any one of these boxes in the table. It does look like now there's a blank space. So if you wanted to move the peers up so there isn't that blank space there, you can do that too. But I'm not too concerned about it right now. The charts adjust automatically so it doesn't leave any sort of blank space in the legend or anything.
There's a question in the chat about sharing permissions. When you make a copy of something, you get to be the owner of that Google Doc. So it's officially yours when you've made a copy of a template, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because that gives you all the sharing and editing privileges. And actually, no one sees it until you're ready for them to see it.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something I've had to double check before too, because I know I'm making a copy of a publicly shared view only document. And when I make a copy of that, I don't want it to be publicly shared because I'm working in it, making my own slide deck. And so it is immediately only, when you make a copy, it's only available to you, and you can choose if you'd like to share it from there, exactly like Tia said. We were also wondering, just because this is the very first version we've put out, and it is what it is for right now. If you have something that you want to see in yours that isn't already here, for example, more years within the longitudinal comparisons, things like that, we aren't changing the overall tool as a whole right now for everybody, but you are welcome to reach out to us, and I can, if you share your copies that you made with me, I can edit it to add in years of data, add in different charts and kind of customize it if there's something you're looking for. This is all using 2024 data. So in a year's time, we're going to have to update the parent documents with the next year of PLAR data, Public Library Annual Report 2025 data. And at that point, you would need to make the copies again to do the setup process. of the report with 2025 data. And at that point, we would love to add things that we've heard over the year that we've heard from a lot of people would be helpful to try to make this as useful as possible for you all. So if you have any uses for it that maybe we haven't thought of, or ideas for how you're going to use it going forward, suggestions for future versions, please feel free to throw them in the chat or ask any questions if there's any still floating out there.
Got a question about making it a one-page infographic. And I said, no, not really a way to do that. I think it's a little bit too many charts and graphs to do a single pager. They'd be pretty small by the time you got all 17 on a single page, I think.
Yeah, but if you want to do comparative data, or you just want to tell a story of your library alone, there are some other graphic tools that you could utilize that I'm sure LRS would love to share, or somebody from library development would love to share. There's some other potential tools to be able to use.
We do have the one pager that our counting opinion survey software puts out. So Veronica, if you want that, just shoot me an email. I can send that to you. Or you could sign in if you have rights to sign into your counting opinion survey tool. You could print it from there most of the time. It's a little buggy. Okay, Veronica, I'll send that your way.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super excited that about the interest in this so far, and also to wrap it back around to what Polly was saying at the beginning, we are looking at options for making it possible to do this connection with monthly data. If you're able to input your monthly data, we're just at the beginning stages of that, but we have the connection and base for it already set up. So that's something that might be coming up in the future for you all to look for as well.
Got definitely a one. I would love that.
Nice, good, wonderful.
And those of you that aren't in the Google sphere, we actually had a working product in Excel and Word or PowerPoint, which can do a similar thing, but became really problematic with versioning. If somebody had a really old version of Microsoft Office and somebody had the newer, it didn't play very well. And that connection, that really funky connection that we had to make, was also a bit problematic. So we thought Google a little more universal and pivoted and went that direction.
Yeah, it's been a much more reliable tool since we put it into Google in all aspects of it, I feel like. So. Thank you all for joining us today. It's been great to be able to share this with you. And yes, we will share out this webinar. We are recording it, and so we'll post it and we'll send it to attendees.
Sarah, do you guys have a uniform email address that you could throw in the chat to reach out to LRS if they have questions?
Here's a link to a survey for today's presentation, and our generic contact email address is just lrs@lrs.org.
You can fill out the survey. You'll also get a follow-up email, I think about an hour after this presentation, that contains the survey link as well, but that really helps us to have post-session survey evaluations. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks Tia for putting library development at cde.state.co.us. That would be to reach Polly and Kieran on the library dev team.
All right, well, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.